recall when $1 or $2
was a tip that would see you through. Showed the waitress or barkeep you cared for the service and smiles they shared.
But now it's a digital screen with percentages never in between. 15, 20, or even 25%. It's enough to make a working man lament. Inflation's rising, costs ain't cheap, but the guilt trip's laid on thick and deep. If you don't tip the suggested amount, they look at you like you just flunked a test. But now it's a digital screen with percentages never in between. 15, 20, or even 25%. It's enough to make a working man lament. Whatever happened to good old cash, tucked in an apron, a discreet little dash? Now it's all calculated, tracked and tallied. The human touch is getting awfully shallow. But now it's a digital screen with percentages never in between. 15, 20, or even 25%. It's enough to make a working man lament. But now it's a digital screen with percentages never in between. 15, 20, or even 25%. It's enough to make a working man lament.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for POS Uncensored, where we take the point of sale and we make sure that it's uncensored and it's right for you as sales partners across the great Papertech land and those who might be considering working with us. We're going to make sure that you understand point of sale, that you can sell point of sale. And, well, sometimes we just say things like, POS. All right. On the left-hand side of the screen, I'm Nate Manahan, but on the right-hand side of the screen is the POS guru, the man, the myth, the legend himself, the person on the other side of Indianapolis, Indiana, Mr. Matt Proctor. How is the POS Pro team, and how are you, sir, today?
Doing fine, buddy. I like that song. You had me jamming out. I've never heard a song like that. It was all about tips. I hope everyone else heard it, as they were joining. But
well,
I was giggling over here.
I will thank you, AI. Little Gemini from Google wrote the lyrics with a couple other prompts that I put together, and Udio, the online, and you're going to hear this a lot because I'm just having a lot of fun creating my own songs about every show that we did. So I thought, why not one on tipping? And I thought, hey, little country lament song just to have a little bit. And as we talk about digital screens, we're on the digital screen. Tipping is one of those things. It is everywhere now. You show up and you buy a pair of trousers from a local bakery. I don't know why you do that. They're probably going to ask you for a tip. You show up to a chicken wing, fast food, fast casual place in downtown Indianapolis. They're going to ask you to tip. If you've been at a full service restaurant, they're going to ask you a tip. And all that now ties back to, as our song said, it's mostly done. It's not in cash anymore. It's on the card, and it's being used in our POS. Matt, what percentage of restaurants and maybe in some retail, what percentage of people are being set up with tip prompts now?
It's ridiculous now, in my opinion. Sorry, that's my opinion. The amount of digital tip prompts that are available. My local Subway, who I know the owner and I know the family over there, their new credit card terminal prompts for a tip, which they've never, ever had in the last 9 years I've been going there. Now, it's great. I love them. So, yes, there are times where, sure, I'll throw a tip on because they're talking to me and they're making a sandwich. But half the time now, these digital screens, they want that available to help offset the costs that they're having to pay for their employees. That's literally it. I mean, the tips are meant for full service restaurants where the people are making under minimum wage and they live off those tips. That is their livelihood, are those tips. Not in the retail environment, not in the QSR. The Chipotle employee is getting paid far more than minimum wage. That is a bonus that they're trying to get their employee. it's kind of sad. I mean, you're talking to an old, long-time restaurant veteran where tipping is, hits a sour note with me. It's very, very, very important in our environment, for people's livelihood. And I think it's been abused personally in a
Uh,
lot of environments. It should not be.
we're recording this on the day of the first presidential debate here in the U.S., and we'll take our political stands on tipping. I'm just always surprised still, and I question to myself. So this just happened to me last week. I'm downtown Indy and taking my kids out to Chicken Scratch. Highly recommend if you've ever been to go Chicken Scratch. And I really get one of their crazy fry things. They're insane, and get some with crab meat and stuff. But we're there. Meal comes. It's a fast casual. Well, I don't even know. It's not even casual. It's like fast food, but order. They're going to call it your order, and they ask for a tip. And I'm always like, how do they divide the tip? There's, 3 people at the counter, 3 people playing, doing front of the kitchen, 3 in the back of the kitchen. I'm like, are they dividing by 9? I'm always wondering, as you're setting up and these places are doing it, and it used to be, I don't know, 10 years ago, it was 100% tips were only in full service restaurants, sit down doing. Now, every restaurant does it. Nearly all QSRs are doing some type of tipping, like the Subway you were talking about. As you're setting them up, what are they talking about, and how is that being managed, and how do our systems do it differently? Because what are some of the things being discussed when you're setting up tips for our merchants?
There are some good things about it. So I set up a hot dog franchise about a year ago, and they did want to add that. At first, that never came up. They never asked about it. They didn't want tip prompt. They didn't want anything like that. It's a hot dog place. It's all quick service, line out the door, come in and get your hot dogs or whatever you want on it. But I understood when they came to me one day and said, Matt, we want to change this. We want to promote our staff that are upselling and that are talking more to the guests, that are engaging in the guests, that the guests are coming back and they're loving talking to Stacy or Rick or whoever was, checking them out at the counter. And we want to promote that, and then have them be able to either share the tips or get the tips when they're running the till. I get that. I totally get that. They're getting paid higher than minimum wage. They do not need legally to receive any tips at all, but they want to encourage better customer service. If that's the case, that's great. I don't have a problem with that when they're just trying to encourage better customer service. At the flip side of that, I think there are a lot of lazy owners out there. I've spoken to a lot of them where they could care less what their employees get, if they get a tip or don't get a tip. They just want it available on there so that they don't have to worry about their employees complaining about money. And if they get a tip, great. If they don't get a tip, but they could care less if they give good customer support. And for me, that's frustrating, because if I'm taking an order at a quick service place, maybe a chicken place, I'm grabbing my order. They never once looked me in the face. They never once really engaged. There's okay, thanks, 17, whatever. And then they're expecting me to leave a tip. No, I think that's ridiculous. You did nothing but your job and stand there and just ring up an order, which is what you were paid to do. You didn't go above and beyond. And sadly, that has become more of the common theme. And it's for owners to help offset certain costs. And they still have to pay taxes on it, but it's for them to get their employees a little extra money without having to pay them any more hourly. And that's what I'm noticing in the QSR environment. And there are times where it is deserved. There's times where they're great employees and they are busting their butt and they're the happiest people in the whole world. And I have no problem clicking that button and giving them a tip if they deserve it.
So let's talk specifically about our POS systems and how we actually collect the tips. So still, obviously, most of our places we can do some type of tip, cash tip, and they can leave a tip. They can write it on their receipt printer. They can do it on the digital screen. How is that set up? And are there any limitations on any of our specifically restaurant systems on how they do, obviously the prompting for percentages and all that, and actually setting up the tips? Is there anything specifically there are limitations on one versus another?
That is the best possible question you could ask, Nate. I love that. So that is one of the first things that my staff asked. If we have a QSR environment, quick service environment, where the order pay at the counter, one of the very first things we ask are, do you want to prompt for a tip on the screen? Do you want them to sign on the screen? because believe it or not, a lot of systems still don't do that. And we have two in particular that do it extremely well, where you can have a second screen. It can either flip over or have a whole separate screen where it is interactive, and it can have tip prompts, custom tip, percentage amounts, okay, or no tip, and they can sign right there on the screen, boom, and done. We need to know that right away. If they're used to using Clover, then most likely 99% of the time they're going to want that. Or if they don't care about that, maybe they still want a customer display, but they're okay if it just shows the totals. We can always do a tip prompt on the actual EMV terminal. So when they put in that amount of $21, it goes down to the tip prompt on the credit card terminal, and then there it prompts for a percentage. Would you like to leave a tip, yes or no? If so, how much? And it can be custom or a set percentage. So we do have two different ways of doing it. It's very imperative that my team talks about that ahead of time. It would help you as the agent to also discuss that too, about what do they prefer, because we need to know right away what system we're looking at. And I'll go back to that hot dog example, Nate. It turns out the system that I set them up with did not have sign on screen and tip on screen because they never brought it up and they never wanted it. So we actually set them up to do it through the terminal, and then they didn't like that because there was too much paper. So I swapped out their system completely with a whole nother point of sale that we offer that does have a digital interactive customer facing display where they can sign and tip right on the screen. So we kept the account, but we went through a whole big headache all because they never wanted tips from the beginning and then changed their mind. So it's very imperative that we talk about that ahead of time. There's many ways to do it, but that's a great question, Nate, and that's something that we have to discover right away, because not every system can actually do that. Not every system's like Clover. You can just flip around and have them sign on the screen. So we need to know.
So one of the things I like about tipping that's been helpful over the last, I don't know, probably 20 years, is that the POS systems now provide, especially on those at a full service restaurant where you are doing a printed receipt, the little pre-prompts that you get, and I guess you get it on the digital, but the little preset prompts, 18, 20, 24%, whatever, how they do that. How are those calculated? How are those are there different ways that our system, do some of our systems limit it to only certain, you can only have 3, you can have 5, you can only have 2. Is there any differences between how our systems do those prompts?
The maximum that I've seen have been 5. I find it very funny because I'm a math guy, so I've never had a problem with it, but I tend to marry people who aren't good at math. And so that actually really helps. And so I find it funny when I see that check being presented and it shows, here are all the percentages of how much you should tip based off of the total of the credit card total. And you know what? It really helps people. It really does. They can go through and say, oh, that's what 20% or 22% or 25 or 18, whatever percentage it is. Having that print on the ticket, which all of our systems do, that's a huge advantage. And it's doing nothing but helping out their staff, because, people who aren't quick to be able to figure it out right away might think they gave 20%. And really they shorted them because they didn't pull out their calculator or they didn't do the math correctly. So it really has helped to have that printed right on the receipt. And like I said, Nate, 5 is the highest I've seen. 3 is the most common. But I have seen up to 5. I'm not sure if any could go even more than that.
So a couple more questions on tipping. How about included tipping? I don't even know what the technical term is, but table 6 or more, we're going to have a gratuity added of 18% or whatever. How our systems handle that? Is there variances of that? Is it can you turn it on so it's automatic every time you say there's 6 people at a table, it's going to turn on? How does that work with the what do you even call it, Matt? Is it included gratuity? Is in?
Yeah, it's automatic gratuity.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. It's just called automatic gratuity. It can be turned on and off with different systems. Generally, it's 6 or more. I've known systems that can turn it on every single table. It doesn't matter if there's one person or no one. And those are usually the resort environment where no matter what, if you go to that beach bar, automatic gratuity is going to be involved. And I got bit by that last year because all the other places in the resort didn't have that, except for this one little beach bar, and no one ever told me. Of course, I didn't pay attention, so I'm double tipping. But yes, it can be based on the amount of people, and it is a prompt that can be turned on and off. Most places do it for larger groups, 8 or more, and it clearly states on the receipt. And they'll most of the time they'll say an additional gratuity. That way they know, okay, there's already gratuity added in. Here's what it is. $75 is added in for gratuity. If I really like them, maybe I want to add on $10, $20, things like that. That's how it's supposed to be done. There's supposed to be a line for additional gratuity. Because once again, if they went above and beyond, they're allowed to give an additional tip.
Perfect. All right, now let's move to the important part of the tipping experience, which is the server tipping payout and reporting. Because if you're taking all these reports, it's a question of, I walk in, I tip the quick service restaurant. Who gets the money? How do they get the money? How's the reporting done? I'm questioning it all the time. If I'm the server, I want to make sure that I'm getting calculated and getting the proper payout, how that's done. And then even on the places that are actually putting back in and doing the reporting on the cash tips. So how does all the reporting work, and how does the payout work in our POS systems, and what are the differentials on how that works?
Such a good loaded question. That's a loaded question because it depends on how everyone runs their business. Now, cash tips, as we know, are not recorded, and it's almost impossible to record them. You are hoping that you have the most honest server in the entire world that will actually put in how much they just received in cash. I've yet to really find many of them. So cash tips aren't recorded. It's all credit card tips. Whether it's a full service restaurant or QSR, how their tip out is all based on how the owner wants to run the business. So I've been at places where the hostess gets a tip, because that hostess, their job, or host or hostess, their job is to keep seating completely equal. If you've got 15 people, guess what? They've got 16, they've got 15, they've got 14. All of it was equal seating. The host gets a percentage. They get 1%, 2%, whatever it is. The bartender always gets their tip percentage from every single server. I don't care where you work. The bar always gets a percentage. It's usually off of alcohol sales. Every once in a while, it'll be off of total sales. That's very rare. It's normally off of all alcohol sales. The POS does that for you. Okay, a good POS system will calculate you had it's a big night, $775 in alcohol sales for all these big bottles of wine, everything you sold. Okay, 2.5% of that goes to the bartenders. So at the end of the night, when you print out your report, it can calculate and break down total alcohol sales. Here's what you owed here. Total food sales is what you're tipping out your essay, your food runner, whatever it might be. Okay. Total of sales of everything is what you're also tipping out the host. So they break it all down. QSR, personally, I think they do more of a tip pooling and a share. There might be a percentage that goes to the kitchen to make sure the kitchen staff is happy and are getting paid enough to make more than they would at McDonald's. Brazilian steakhouses, that's all they do is tip pooling. There's a reason why there's 12 gauchos walking around everywhere, slicing meat up, and they got the salad bar, and it's called team service, all tip pooling. That means every single tip you leave at a Brazilian steakhouse all goes into one big pot at the end of the night, and it gets split up equally amongst every single server, every food runner, every gaucho, every plate clear, busser, you name it, it gets split up equally. Okay, so there are certain systems that do tip pooling really well. There are other POSs that can't do tip pooling. So making sure you know that we're looking at the right one, and believe me, ask me, I'll tell you which ones do a good job. But tip pooling is a whole different ballgame, and Brazilian steakhouses are the main ones notorious for that.
Perfect. Well, I promised Matt this would be a short one. Amazing how we could just keep talking about tipping. I'm going to leave now on tipping. We'll probably come back because there's a lot of things I'm sure we answered. But any closing words on tipping, or recommendations, or things that you want our partners to know about tipping?
Yeah, no. Take care of your staff. Tip when it's needed. Full service restaurants, that is their livelihood. Okay, unless it's the worst person in the entire world, take care of them. Leave them a good tip. Okay, your worst tip should be 20%. This is my opinion, because they're working hard. You don't know if it's a single mother. You don't know if it's a single father. You don't know what they've been through. but they're there working their butt off to get you a grilled cheese sandwich or burger or whatever it is. Take care of them because they're making under minimum wage. Most people don't realize that. At a QSR environment, if they engage in you and they're laughing with you and having a great time, tip them, give them a little extra money. Show them that they deserve that, because you know what? That's going to make them act the same way every time. And it's going to keep that business open. All right. So take it upon yourselves. Use your best judgment. Take care of people. Okay. Pay it forward. It's always going to come back to you. Okay. Please take care of people when it comes to tipping. You don't have to. Don't feel pressure in certain environments. If they did not do a single darn thing and they never even looked at you, then no, don't feel pressure like you have to put a tip if they just did their regular job. But if they go above and beyond, please tip them. Make sure you're taking care of our service people so that they stay. So they're there.
There we go. Tipping is not going anywhere. It's continuing to expand, and the POS Pros and POS Uncensored here at PayProTech are ready to help make sure your merchants, your restaurants, your hair salons, whatever needed it is on the tipping, we're here to help you make sure that it's properly done, that it's reported, that it's paid out, and that it saves a lot of time for the owners of all those businesses. And we'll keep learning more about tipping. And there's so much to learn. And we'll be back on POS Uncensored. We're taking a week off next week. Happy Independence Day as we start the second half of the year. We'll be back 2 weeks from today, I believe, with another POS Uncensored. See you guys.
Actually,
have a great one.
I'm gonna be out in a couple weeks, Nate. So we got a couple weeks off.
Couple weeks off. Maybe I'll throw something on the feed, but yeah. So a couple weeks off.
Vacation once every 2 years, so I have to have vacation.
Yeah, and he's on vacation, and I'm in the. I'm not. Yeah, so it may be several weeks to POS Uncensored. But hey, thanks for watching. We'll come back when we come back. All right, see everybody.
Yeah, we'll get back. All right,
All right,
guys.
Bye.